Hello, it is Jack Gill, and welcome back to Redmen Academy. It wasn't long since, it's not been long since our last video, but there's been a few good youngsters making some good appearances again. One that I'm particularly fond of that we'll talk about later. We're going to start with some breaking news that's literally just come out though before we went live, and that is that Jaros has signed a new contract, a long-term contract at the club. James, great news.
Yeah, really good keeper. Obviously playing with the under-18s this season, made one appearance in the 23s. He'll be looking to, make that step up now if Callagher's perhaps to go out on loan or be more involved with the first team. He'll be turned to in the 23 setup, and hopefully we'll get to see him impress, because from what I've seen, he's a good shot stopper and the club clearly have faith in him to make that step up.
Yeah, and for any background information on Jaros, if you don't know too much about him, he joined us as a 16-year-old in 2017. I believe he came from Slavia Prague in the Czech Republic. He joined the under-18 squad, who at the time it was working with Neil Edwards, the goalkeeper coach there then. And was part of the Youth Cup winning side in 2019 in that shootout, of course. And he was part of the under-23s last year, really. And I think it's really good news, James, with Atherton and Shamal George leaving on a free, obviously this summer. I think it's really good news that we've managed to tie people like Jaros down.
Yeah, we've done well with goalkeepers recently as well, and I think it's a shame that Atherton, there's no space for him, but we've been bringing in a lot of good young goalkeepers from like sort of Eastern Central Europe, and whenever they're playing, they've got that grit, they've got that ability to play out from the back, and I think recruitment there has been good, and we'll see in a few years' time probably that it'll start paying dividends, because we'll have a really good crop of sort of under-21 goalkeepers coming through at the same time.
Absolutely, I'd agree. We were talking before we went on air. We've got Olszynski as well, who's a very good goalkeeper, and there are quite a few good young players. We spoke about Kamil Grabara before, who was on loan at Huddersfield this year. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him this summer, and Quaveen Kelleher as well. So we've got an abundance of good young goalkeepers, and it's a shame for Shamal George and Dan Atherton to leave. I personally wasn't too surprised about Shamal George, but Dan Atherton I was. But it's good to know that we're able to tie Jaros down and make sure he's with us for a long time. We've also completed the signing of 16-year-old goalkeeper, and I'm so sorry if I butcher this name, Fabian Mrozek. He's Polish, so there's not too much we know about this lad, James, but it's going to be good to watch him this season and see if, like you say, he can be a part of this really good crop of young goalkeepers that we have at this football club.
Yeah, we seem to be pulling these goalkeepers out of almost thin air from the middle of nowhere, and we're clearly signing them for a reason, and they're going with a decent reputation, it seems too. So they'll be brought in to battle for a starting spot. We've not even mentioned Ben Winterbottom, who's a very good keeper as well, who's impressed a lot last season. He was interesting to see what the situation is.
Well, Winterbottom was so good in the youth league, wasn't he? That's really impressed. I think he put in a few outstanding performances there to get us through. And as we said, there's just so many good goalkeepers at this football club, and we've seen throughout the season in the under-23s and the under-18s, they like to rotate who was in goal, and I think that was very good because, like you say, we have so many of them, and it is a shame because I think Dan Atherton is a decent goalkeeper, but clearly he could see the amount of talent around him and how many keepers we have, and thought it was time to move on, and Liverpool moved him on. Now we're going to move on to the game last night, James. Brighton versus Liverpool, of course. Neco Williams, we'll start with the team selections. Neco Williams started. I have to say that I had a feeling that one of the youngsters would start against Brighton. I don't know why. I think with how well Neco had been doing since the restart, coming on off the bench, and the fact that we've already won the title, and Curtis Jones's goal against Aston Villa, of course, it just felt like last night would be the night where we might see a youngster start, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we knew that Brighton was going to attack us, and we knew that I'd leave space in behind. And for our young players who have pace and abundance, who are brilliant in open spaces, it was written sort of in the stars for them, wasn't it, to go and make an impression. And Neco did really well. He's playing comfortably on the left, considering he's a very, very right-footed at the moment. Hopefully that's something that he'll be able to adapt as he gets older and get a little bit more two-footed as he grows up.
Yeah, well, we were obviously messaging at the time about this because seeing Neco on the left is something that, as Liverpool supporters, we haven't seen too much before in the team or for the first team, of course. Um, but for Wales, I believe he's appeared there once or twice. I think Jurgen Klopp said yesterday in his presser that he's appeared there for Wales, and he has. We checked, didn't we, last night? But it's something that we were happy for him to get his first start, and he was rewarded for his performances since the restart. But personally, I was slightly worried because to throw someone in for their first Premier League start who's on such good form out of position can be a bit of a risk. But with that being said, I think it was very important to explore. Now we've wrapped up the title. I think we need to see what's going on with that left back position and what to do about an understudy for Andy Robertson. And if Neco Williams can play understudy to both Trent and Robertson, I think that would be a brilliant thing, and Klopp would absolutely love that, and would mean that we don't really need to dip into the market. But it was one of them where I was optimistic for Neco Williams, and like you said, I think he was absolutely superb last night in certain areas.
Yeah.
I think you could see he struggled on his left foot at times, but that was absolutely expected. And thinking about it, I think trying that out against an opponent like Brighton was probably the best thing to do. But yeah, I think it's something that we should really look to explore more, James.
Yeah, well, he very much plays like a right back playing left player or a senior player. They were always going to struggle because normally you need to be left. So to see him have to take a touch onto his right to then play the pass did slow things down a little bit, but he's got more than enough pace to get into those positions to then take his time. So we've been saying all season that it's a shame that he's coming through on the right when we haven't really got that breakthrough talent on the left. It makes sense to try it, see if it works. If it does work, then we've solved that problem. He's going to get potentially twice as many minutes as the deputy on both sides, and we get to see a young player come through who's got massive bags of talent.
I think it would have been brilliant for the coaches to see last night as well, because it was a performance where you looked at it and you could see the positives and you could see the things that needed working on. And it's something that, I mean, the thing with Neco Williams is, and we spoke about this so many times before, how when he gets on the pitch, he always plays with heart, he always plays desire, and he seems to get better every single game. And you saw that last night. At times, he looks uncomfortable on that left-hand side. As you say, he is a right-footed player. It can be very difficult for a right-footer playing on the left or a left-footer playing on the right. And at times, as the commentators like to say, when he got the ball the first time in the game, he cut in straight away, and you could see. I think Brighton probably noticed that was something that he'd probably try and do a lot.
But then an extra second, doesn't it, to react and get that foot in and get a jump on him while he's sort of deciding what he wants to do.
Exactly, but then seconds later he tried it again, but then went on his left happily, and Cruyff turned past the defence. So, I think it showed really good signs, and I think it could be something that we see again. And Klopp was probably very happy with his performance. He was brought off at half time, which I think was necessary. I think, as I mentioned, the fight and desire that Neco Williams plays with, for him to have that yellow card looming over him as well, and for a youngster to be up against him on that side of the pitch that we'll talk about in a moment, on absolute fire. I think he needed to be bought off. But that being said, I think Klopp would have, given him lots of praise in the dressing room at half time.
Well, from what the quote here I've got says, it's that Klopp insisted, saying the yellow card was the only reason. He was good. I can't ask a 19-year-old to make another challenge on a yellow card. We asked a lot of them. We put him on the wrong side and asked him to press very hard. We asked a lot, but he can do that. He was good, but the yellow card was too much of a risk. So clearly he did enough to impress whilst on the pitch. It's just, you don't want to ask a 19-year-old not to make those challenges when he's challenging with his weak foot, because it's too much of a risk.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I think, with how fast Tariq Lamptey is as well. It was necessary, because you saw a couple of times Lamptey get past him easily, and like for the yellow cards, he had to bring him down. And I think there was a tactical foul, wasn't it? Yeah, there was a moment just before where he tried to grab him as well, but missed. And that's the danger of it. And I think it was the right thing to do from Jurgen Klopp. But yeah, a brilliant debut nonetheless. And as I say, I think we're going to see a lot more of Neco Williams going forward. I think he's a super talent. It's just unfortunate, as we said so many times before, that he's the understudy to the best right back in world football right now. But now that he's shown that he's got that versatility that Jurgen Klopp loves so much, then hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of this young lad. Let us know what you think in the comments of Neco Williams. And yeah, a great talent, and I'm sure Welsh fans are very happy to see a young fullback coming through as well. Talking of young fullbacks, we have to talk about Tariq Lamptey, James. I've been looking forward to this all night. Yeah, he's a player that I noticed a while back playing against Liverpool at Kirby earlier on in the season. I'd known him a couple of times before then. I'd spotted him in certain games where people had told me to keep my eye on him. But with Tariq Lamptey in that game, when I watched him live, it was almost like, wow, he absolutely controlled the game. He was everywhere from his right back position, and he's got that pace. He seems to have a bit of absolutely everything. And like I said, with Neco Williams, that fight in his eye that is brilliant for a youngster to have. He got sent off later in the game for a second bookable offence, but I think it showed just how everywhere he was throughout the game, and that he was trying to get involved in absolutely everything, which I thought was fantastic to see. Then he moves to Brighton, James, which for me is the perfect club for a young player like that, and for a talent like Tariq Lamptey. I think Graham Potter has tried to establish a certain way of playing on Brighton this season, and at the minute they don't have too many of that type of player. So that's why they are where they are in the league. But I think over the next few years with Graham Potter, we'll see them slowly going up and up and up the table as he starts to get more of his signings to Brighton. And I think Tariq Lamptey is one of the first sorts of those signings that Graham Potter would really like to have brought in. And I think he can be an absolute star there. For a player of his caliber and a youngster like him to have that position on the right hand side for Brighton, and he's got a lot of pace.
Well, for Graham Potter as a manager, he's very much a follower of the whole Moneyball system, isn't it? Of finding players who maybe aren't getting used or undervalued, getting the best out of them and maximising their potential. And with him, you can see absolutely that he was never really going to get into the team past Reece James, because he is a lot smaller. He hasn't got the same sort of build, and it was all against him to get into that Chelsea side. So to go out to Brighton made absolute sense. He's going to be getting 13 minutes because he's got the quality on the ball. He was just physically a little bit behind, and he's gone to a place where he can, slowly ease his way into that team, get used to senior football, and the pressure isn't going to be on him every week, but he's still going to have the opportunity to play attractive possession football and look to use his strengths.
Well, they like to play football, Brighton, and he's on that right hand side. They're not the best defensively, so he won't stick out like a sore thumb, because I think his defensive part of his game can be worked on. But that being said, a lot of the game, especially in the first half, he's flying forwards, creating loads of attacks on the right hand side, causing Neco Williams some trouble. And then in the second half, we saw Salah going through, and Tariq Lamptey does really, really well to deal with Salah. Yeah, and I think on another day, Salah goes down and wins a penalty, but he showed his strength. This lad is 19 years old, and he shows his strength, and that he's able to hold off one of the best wingers in world football, as well as his attacking talents that he showed throughout that game. And he's a player that I've said for a while people need to keep their eye on, and he's had four or five Premier League starts now, and he's really impressed. And I think that he's going to be a real player. I honestly think he's a gem. And as I said back in January, I think he was the best deadline day transfer, because, as I said before, I think Brighton is the perfect club for him, and is a place where he can play regular football, grow as a player, and they like to play football and grow. He can grow defensively as well, because, as I said, they're not too strong at the back, Brighton, as we saw last night. So yeah, I thought he was one of the best players on the pitch last night, and it was good to see all over social media Liverpool fans recognising how good he was as well. It's just a shame that he went to Brighton in January and that he's not available for us to sign in the summer. But yeah, I think we've spoke about Tariq Lamptey now. I can't gloat more than I already have about that. And another player I want to move on to, James, a young player we spoke about in the video we did a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
But he got another assist the other night, and there were some stats on Sky Sports that frankly need talking about. It's Bukayo Saka, who has recently signed a new contract at Arsenal. Um, he's such a talent, isn't he, James?
He's so good. 3 goal contributions in the 6 games since the restart. 2 assists and a goal. Obviously, assisted Arsenal's goal in the 1-1 draw against Leicester the other day. He's so good, and he's to adapt to that position from being a more offensive player. He's made it look so easy, and there are deficiencies in his game. But like we've seen with Alphonso Davies, when you've got the pace and you've got the technique, you can cover over those little cracks in your game whilst working on it in training. So he's one of the few shining lights for Arsenal this season, and he's kept things ticking over whilst they're going through whatever changes are going on in the background. And Arsenal fans are really gonna start appreciating him even more as he grows as a player, because he's not going to be slowing down at all.
Well, he's got the second most goal contributions for Arsenal at just 18 years old in his debut season for the club. Only Aubameyang has more goal contributions, and of course he's in the race for the Golden Boot. He's got the third most assists in all competitions of a Premier League player. Only Kevin De Bruyne, which is arguably the best midfielder in the world right now, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, the best right back in the world right now, have more than him. And James, the thing I wanted to talk about is we constantly praise Trent Alexander-Arnold and his assists from right back. Now, Saka's played left back at times for Arsenal this season, and he still gets goal contributions. We saw in the Europa League when he played left back for the first time. I believe he got 2 assists that night and looked outstanding. This is a young lad who is versatile, and similarly to Tariq Lamptey and other players that we spoke about during this, he's versatile, and he's got everything. He's got absolutely everything to his game. And I think there was a brilliant thing. There was a brilliant part of this assist against Leicester where he put it on his weak foot, which the defender didn't expect, and just slid it across goal to Aubameyang. And that is something that an experienced player would do. This lad's 18 years old.
He's playing with freedom, isn't he? He's playing under an attacking coach in Arteta, where he's been given that license to do what he does best, and whether that means he's playing at left back, left wing, left midfield, he's still keeping his game, and he's not changing who he is as a player to suit that position. He's just doing things a little bit differently, and we're seeing it's paying dividends for him and for Arsenal, because we're seeing that he's such a core player, and he's only 18 years old. He's not 19 till September, and if he keeps up this form, he's not far away from being in the England team, I dare say, because he's miles ahead of anyone else in his position right now. Even Ben Chilwell, I'd go as far to say.
Well, we speak about Lamptey and how it may suit him being a big fish in a small pond at Brighton that like to play football. But Bukayo Saka is at a big club surrounded by world-class talent, and he doesn't look out of place. In fact, if he does look out of place, it's the fact that he looks too good for them at the minute. He's everything for them. He was a massive part of their win against Wolves. He obviously creates that goal against Leicester and looks outstanding. He is their main man at the minute, and like you say, he's not too far away from that England team. And I think for someone that follows England and is a big fan of England, I think they'd be so excited to see what they're seeing at the minute, because you've got Bukayo Saka, you've got Greenwood, of course, having a great season. You've got Jadon Sancho having one of the best seasons he's ever had. You've got so many good young
Phil Foden as well.
Yeah, Foden, of course, coming through as well. You've got so many young players at the minute, but they all seem to play in a similar position. But it shows that there was this golden era of talent coming through. We saw at the Under-18s World Cup a few years ago with Foden, Sancho, Brewster starring in that World Cup, Dom Solanke as well. There's that golden era that everyone was excited about a few years ago. People were worried that it would be like so many other times with the England sides of the past, where you think there's a golden era coming and then it falls through. But from an England fan's point of view, there's so much to be excited for right now.
I mean, I'm excited. I don't follow England, don't support England at all, but I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the young players coming through, because it's going to be such a spectacle as well. Seeing how much talent's come through the French system at the same time, the Spanish system. I think you retweeted something on the account the other day looking at the depth of these countries at under 21 level. And it's incredible. I think we'll start seeing national teams get younger and younger purely because we've got constant supply of players coming into that senior setup or pushing on that senior setup that it's going to be so hard to ignore. And it's only going to push teams to become better because players are going to have to perform at a higher and higher level to keep out the next young kid on the block.
Yeah, and of course, we'll keep you up to date with all the young talent coming through and exactly who to keep your eye on. But we know Gareth Southgate likes his youngsters, and he likes to have trust and put faith in young players for England. So I think it's only a matter of time before we see the likes of Saka, Greenwood, Foden getting an opportunity with the England first team, and they absolutely deserve it at the minute because they're outperforming some brilliant players in the Premier League, and they're not looking like they don't deserve to be getting first team opportunities. So yeah, that's Arsenal and Bukayo Saka spoken of. But another young player at Arsenal is Eddie Nketiah, who has had an interesting season to say the least. James, he got sent off against Leicester, I believe, just 4 minutes after coming on the other night. He spent the first half of the season out on loan and out of favour at Leeds. Very bizarre situation where Patrick Bamford was being preferred over him. And at the time, everyone was questioning Marcelo Bielsa and why that was happening. But he goes back to Arsenal. He seems in Arteta's plans. He gets a couple of starts at the start of the year. We saw he was man of the match against Southampton, I believe, after the restart. And then we see him come on against Leicester. And you can see his hunger and his willingness to want to be there. I don't think he's meant it at all. But it's a silly challenge to do, isn't it?
He's not in control. He's gone for the ball and he's gone too high. And I don't know if that's whether down to a lack of experience, just a lack of calmness. He's gone on to try and make an impression, hasn't he, where he wants to impress. He wants to get his team a win. And it's gone to his head. And I think it's a moment of madness, isn't it, really? He's not even seen red, but he's lost control. And he's regretted it probably instantly. He's realised as he's going to, but it's too late by then. It doesn't matter what his intent was. It's the potential outcome and the fact that it could have really damaged the player's knee.
Well, we talk about young players and their willingness and the need to want to do well and want to impress. And that's what Eddie Nketiah has done. He said after the man of the match performance against Southampton that he likes to be like that. He likes to be in the defender's face. He likes to show aggression. And that's just what he's done. He's wanted to get that ball. He's wanted to get there first. He's highlighted Justin James as a player that if you put pressure on, then he'd easily win the ball. But he's just got there too late. And as I said to you before we went live, I think if Justin James doesn't adjust his position, I think it gets even nastier, and it's a very high challenge. But I think it's unfortunate for Nketiah. I think he's been playing very well since returning to Arsenal, and it's going to be interesting to see how Mikel Arteta uses this young lad, because Arsenal actually have young talent in abundance. They've got Gabriel Martinelli as well, of course, who's an excellent young striker. Saka, who is spoken of. And I think with Arteta, it's exciting times for an Arsenal fan, because we spoke about actually how they could be in trouble with some of the players that they have there, and they do need a bit of a clear out. But they're in a good position to do that, Arsenal, because they've got so much young talent.
I mean, they have Reece Nelson, they have Emile Smith-Rowe, they have Maitland-Niles. Yeah. They've got so many good, Willock as well. Willock's a very good player. As well as Balogun. We're not sure whether he's going to be going to Brentford in the transfer window, whether he's going to be staying, but he's a very, very good young player who's just on the verge of breaking into that first team setup as well. And to have a young, attacking manager like Arteta, if he's given a little bit of time to get a system in place and maybe get those bad eggs out of that first team, or the players who aren't willing to, as Klopp said, push the train, so jump on it, then they're going to be in for a really good time, I think, in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, Balogun is as well, of course, a very, very good young player. If you aren't aware who this lad is, he will be a miss for Arsenal if he leaves. Then it would be a massive signing for Brentford, and it's a typical Brentford signing as well. And it would be one of they've got very close to the Premier League in recent years, Brentford, and I think this is a sign that if they're not already there this season through the playoffs, would get them there in the season after, because he's an outstanding talent and one of the top scorers in the under-23s league this season. A very, very good player. But yeah, Arsenal are in a very good position with their youth talents. They have so many, and Willock, another lad you mentioned that probably England will be keeping their eye on, because there's not too many good central midfield options at the minute for England. So Willock will be an interesting one. But moving on to Chelsea and Christian Pulisic. He's a man that I don't feel we talk about too much, James, but just 21 years old, of course, a player that Liverpool, dare I say, missed out on in the summer last year. He moved to Chelsea, and there was a lot of expectation. He was never going to be a Hazard replacement. He's just 21 years old. It was never going to be like that. He was at a favourite first. He struggled to get into Lampard's matchday squad. But then he got a hat-trick, of course, and started playing well. But after lockdown and since the restart, he has been the player that has impressed me more than anyone else in the Premier League, James. I think a lot of people there's a lot of people that are all on the Bruno Fernandes train at the minute, and will probably argue that Bruno has been very good since the break. But I think Pulisic has been everywhere and done everything for Chelsea. He's looked so alert and so bright for them. Him and William have been outstanding. I believe he scored 3 goals and 1 for them since the break. He's just been fantastic, hasn't he?
He's such a positive player. And I know I am still a bit gutted that we did miss out on him. I know he cost, I think, £58 million altogether. I'm not sure if that's with bonuses or without. And it is a lot of money to spend on someone who, had only had sort of a couple of seasons at a top level. But he's such an exciting player. He's quick. He doesn't look necessarily that quick when he's, not shifting a gear. But once he gets the ball, he's able to run into that space very fast. And he's technically superb. He's versatile. He can shoot. I'm not going to say we missed out massively, because obviously we have just won the Premier League, but he's someone that would have been good to have in that first team squad purely because he can play anywhere and he's got years to hit that top level.
He'd have had a complete different role in our squad as well. He wouldn't have had as much game time. It would have been in small doses. So, I think it's one of them. I've been proven wrong by Pulisic. I have to admit that he's a player I wasn't too convinced by, even when you're talking a couple of seasons ago when he scored a couple of goals against us in a pre-season friendly. He's not a player that I wasn't too convinced by him. I thought he wouldn't cut it in the Premier League. I thought he was overpriced at the time. At the start of the season, I thought I was proved right, but he's really impressed me since the break, and you can see there's a real talent there. And as I say, he looks bright. He looks very, very fast. He can finish very well. You saw that finish against Crystal Palace was outstanding.
He's two-footed as well. He's good on both feet, and that in the Premier League, that's a very good skill to have. So, we haven't really got that in our squad, aside from Adam Lallana, who's very, very good with both feet. And for a player looking to come through into that first team, being able to switch sides with ease it's one of the best things you can have.
Yeah, we praised Mason Greenwood for the same thing the other day, didn't we? He does look like a great player, and it's scary times at the minute with Chelsea and how many good attacking players they're going to have at the minute. Next season you look at Ziyech, Werner, Pulisic, of course, Tammy Abraham, and it looks like they might be getting Kai Havertz as well, which looks like they're going full Rodgers Liverpool 13-14 season, to be honest with you. But yeah, I do think they need to sort out their defence as well. It's all well and good signing a ridiculous amount of fantastic attacking players that are young, but they're not going to cut it with the defence they've got at the minute. And letting players like Tariq Lamptey leave for just £3 million.
No, that one in.
Yeah, I have to get that one in. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there for today. There was quite a lot of different information in there. Just your daily and weekly and monthly reminder that Liverpool are Premier League champions, of course. And yeah, cheers for joining us. 9 points away from that record as well, and of course more Premier League points after 34 games than Manchester United have ever had. So yeah, what a time it is to be a Liverpool supporter, and what a time it is to be a fan of football, with all these young talents coming through. Thanks for joining me, James, and we'll be back very soon for another video. Cheers.
Bye.